What's up, everyone? Welcome back once again to the Football Goons podcast. This will be the first and last time that I personally will wish all of you a very happy new year. Not because I'm trying to be rude, but because, quite frankly, I hate it when it's like January 15th and people are still walking around Happy New Year-ing each other. I think, let's move on past like that first week of January personally. But nonetheless, Happy New Year. Congratulations to those of you who locked up a championship this past week. It feels like an even larger accomplishment in 2017, given the amount of injuries and suspensions that you most likely had to occur this season to get there. So you had to kind of navigate all those bumps in the road. Congratulations. Let's get the show rolling this week here. We're talking about out of the gate here, some New Year's stuff. Are you guys into New Year's resolutions?
No, I don't trust myself, so no. I I don't. I made a promise to my wife, so I'll keep that. So maybe that's my New Year's resolution. Stick with my wife. That's it. I'm not going to lose any weight. We know that is not going to happen. I'm not going to stop eating Kit Kats. That's not going to happen. How about this? I'm not going to draft back-to-back wide receivers in our league next year.
I don't believe it.
It's a lock.
You're going to break it.
I don't believe it. Julio and AJ will be there.
That's one New Year's resolution I believe he'll keep. But no, generally, I think they're dumb. They don't make any sense. Just be a good person all the time. You don't have to set out and make goals to be a better person. Just do it. Well, and don't tell me about it because I don't care.
Try not to be a murderer this year.
Most people aren't. I'll take it. I'm doing it.
Most people aren't like that. I generally make resolutions to try to do something. I mean, I'm very goal driven. You guys know that, and I'm very task oriented. So it kind of fits perfectly with my personality. So yeah, I usually make some resolutions. Haven't really thought about it yet. I got a couple days here, about 5 days, so I better figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy about making a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not going to keep up with, but I do try to set a goal for the year, and it's usually something that I know that I'm going to be able to set up a plan of attack for. So I'll have some kind of a goal for 2018. I know my wife is probably going to want that to be like a weight loss goal. I don't know how into that I am at this point, considering that I'm waiting until this show ends before I just devour this candy bar. So
you're going to start eating those stupid Oreo eggs again, too, making everybody mad.
Gave those all away.
Good.
Gave them all away. So anyway,
I'm disgusted with you right now.
Okay. It is what it is. Let's look ahead here with the fantasy championships finished for the most part. Let's look ahead at week 17. And for the handful that are still playing, we will discuss some fantasy relevant things, for this week. God love you if you're still playing week 17, beyond just for consolation kind of stuff. But hey, we know that it happens. So we're going to look at a little bit at 2018 as well. So let's start it right off here. If you've got to make the choice this week, are you more likely to play a stud quarterback who's likely going to be limited as far as how far into the game they play, maybe a half a game, maybe it's not determined yet, or are you going to take a chance on a player who is going to play all 4 quarters?
I think what's kind of nice about that question this year compared to I think a lot of years that I can remember is that the majority of the stud quarterbacks and really stud players in general still have something to play for. So, I mean, if you look around the league, the teams that have literally nothing to play for are like Jacksonville, and you haven't been carried by Blake Bortles, or Philly, you haven't been carried by Nick Foles, Minnesota, you haven't been carried by Case Keenum. So I think for the most part, if you're a quarterback-driven team, your guy still has something to play for. Even if it's like Dak Prescott, he has nothing to play for as far as the league goes, but he's going to play the whole game. So I think most of those teams that have, you might play a half, you might play a quarter kind of situation. It's not really the guys that have carried you to fantasy championships at this point. I mean, is Leonard Fournette like really the only player that's really, really fantasy relevant that his team is in the playoffs and nothing to play for?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think that you're going to see as the week goes on, a lot more guys are going to come out and say, like, Sean McVay came out, this evening and said basically, and I know you're probably not really counting that heavily on Goff. Maybe you are, but he came out and said that, getting healthy is worlds more important to us than, being a 3 or a 4 seed. Basically, we don't care where we have to travel for the divisional round. We'd rather get healthy, which you're going to see a little bit more of this week. Coaches all tend to differ, but it is an interesting scenario this week because, like, if you have a guy like a guy that you're going to clearly count on every single week to this point, and you have to make a decision between, maybe the Panthers aren't that concerned about it and Cam is only going to play a half. Do you play Cam or do you maybe go with like a Jimmy Garoppolo? It's going to be an interesting dilemma to have to figure out, because I think ideally you'd want to play Cam.
I'm just starting Jimmy over Cam.
I'm stopping Jimmy Garoppolo from now on over everybody.
No matter what.
No, I know that's not really fantasy relevant because, his fantasy stats aren't that great. But no, I get what you're saying, though. Like, I think, listen, if you're still playing for a fantasy championship right now, look at your matchup. Look who they're playing. Look who they have, because obviously you're not the only one in this scenario. You're facing another team who possibly has another guy who is, going to run into the situation, and then match yourself up as best as you can. You know what I mean? Don't do anything crazy. If he's got, if he's one of the guys that got lucky and drafted Jared Goff and has been riding Goff out, don't do something crazy just because you feel like you need to make up for Jared Goff. Look at the situation, look at who he has and then just try and match it up. And if you think that, getting a guaranteed 10 points from your quarterback is better than, excuse me, is better than taking the chance at going for a big game from a Jimmy Garoppolo or I'll remove Blake Bortles because he's, the Jaguars pretty much are locked into 3 at this point. But, just in general, one of those, 15 through 20 guys who are playing their entire game, just be smart about it. Don't make any rash decisions based on how much you think they might play.
Yeah, interesting dilemma to have to look at. Part of the reason why it's so nice to get things wrapped up before week 17, because, you're going to run into these issues. So let's talk about Carlos Hyde, who is a member of those Jimmy Garoppolo-led 49ers. He came out this week, and I thought this was quite interesting for a couple of reasons, and said that the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl next year. Now, that's obviously, that would be a drastic turnaround to a lot of people, which makes it kind of shocking, but also very shocking because he is a free agent after this season. So he's not even a lock to be on the team next year, and he's already forecasting them to win it all. So, number one, do you feel like Carlos Hyde is on this team next year? And if so, what kind of fantasy value does he have? Because I think a lot of us were really high on him this year, and they've really kind of done things, spreading out the usage in the backfield there.
I'm not so sure that Carlos Hyde is on the Niners next year, and therefore I take a wait-and-see approach to this guy. I don't think that he is not fantasy relevant. I think that he has the potential to be a decent starting caliber back someplace. I just don't know if it's in San Francisco, and because I don't know where it is, I'm not ready to say that he's going to be even in the top 20 of our backs next season. Because if he winds up in a shared role someplace, that doesn't put a lot of emphasis on running the ball to begin with, then no, he's not relevant. And at the same token, if he winds up, in Denver, I'm just throwing out a team that I think, likes to run the ball often. I don't think he's going to go to Denver, but if he wound up in Denver, I'd be a little bit higher on Carlos Hyde.
Well, I'll stop you real quick here, because let's assume that he re-signs with the 49ers, which is kind of like what I'm getting at here, because the situation's been kind of random. this year with his usage. But obviously, this team is starting to come together, starting to put something together. So does that change how we look at him next year if he is a 49er again?
For me, I think they're stupid not to re-sign him, and he's stupid not to re-sign there. Like, it's a great situation for him and for them to have him. That being said, I'm not going to be on him as a fantasy player more than likely because Kyle Shanahan's had the most success when he's run a two-back system. I mean, he was amazing last year with Freeman and Coleman. Now, I do not believe that Matt Breida belongs in that conversation with Freeman and Coleman. Hyde does. But if I'm the Niners this offseason, I'm trying to get another running back to pair with him. And maybe that, hey, it could be Breida. I don't know. They seem to like him plenty. But for me, it's a situation where, like, if I'm Hyde, I want to be on the Niners. And if I'm the Niners, he's a great back. And I want him as part of my rotation. But I think as a fantasy owner, that's my key word, is the rotation part of it, where I don't want Hyde because I mean, it's not that I don't want him, but I'm not going to target him as highly as some other people will because he's going to be in a timeshare no matter who's in the backfield. And that was proven this year. Like, their number 2 is either Matt Breida or better. It's not going to get worse. So if they're willing to share with Breida, then they're willing to share with anybody. So I don't know. Free agent or not, I think they're a great pairing. But as a fantasy owner, he's going to share. So be ready for that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think we kind of went into this season looking at it just from the perspective of, like, you know, those Falcons backs were so productive. But I think that it's rather easy to just kind of overlook the fact that the, quote, lead back is still Devontae Freeman. Like, there's not that many backs that are in that class that could be as productive as he is in a timeshare. So, you know, that's a really unique situation. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think we assumed too much on Carlos Hyde. For as good as I think we all believe that he is, I just think that if he comes back to this situation next year, he's really just kind of a hit and miss kind of player. I mean, the kind of guy that you're going to take a chance on later on in the draft, obviously. But he's not a guy you're going to count on for lead production, in my opinion.
I don't think he's a guy that really any of us were counting on. I mean, Shanahan tried to bring in pretty much anybody he could to replace him at the beginning of the season. So I don't think that I know we as the 4 of us weren't touting him like he's going to be the lead dog no matter what. Like, we were all saying he's drafting Williams. He's bringing in all the, you know, anybody cuts, he was bringing in. So yeah, I don't think that Kyle Shanahan's ever believed in him, so I don't think he does now either.
Here's my problem, and I might be different on this. I think Carlos Hyde could be a great compliment in that Kyle Shanahan offense. I think as the number 2. I think he would be a nice guy to bring in the fourth quarter, kind of wear some teams down. Listen, his stats are not overly impressive. This year, he's averaging the lowest of his career, 3.8 yards per carry. You know, he's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, he's not the type of back that I think Kyle Shanahan wants to count on full time. So I think he'd be a nice compliment to another type of player that Shanahan would want to use, you know, more, which goes along with what Deal said about, you know, him looking for anyone and anyone he can. The problem is that Carlos Hyde is not going to want to play second fiddle, and he's going to think that he can get a starting job somewhere. So that's why I don't think he winds up back in San Francisco. It may be the best thing for him, but, you know, too often these guys think with their wallets instead of their heads. And Carlos Hyde's going to say, "Oh, I can be a starting back somewhere. I want to start. I want to be a feature back, and I want to get $7 million a year. You know, whatever the going rate is for a player of his caliber. You know, he's not going to want to take a pay cut to stay in San Francisco and be the number 2 guy."
Yeah, let's stick with the running back discussion here, because I think, you know, we could have a little bit of fun with this. Over the last couple of weeks, Gio Bernard has kind of reemerged into the fantasy picture here. A lot of people had him written off. He was like a less than 5% ownership rate And I'm pretty sure that there are a couple fantasy teams who owe him some props for maybe leading them to the promised land this year over the past couple weeks. With that kind of situation in mind, give me a running back who's kind of like just treading water right now with their team. Maybe they're not being used properly. Maybe it's just not a good system fit. Maybe they're just struggling with the team that they're with, who could benefit the most in fantasy from a change of scenery in 2018.
Carlos Hyde.
I'm going to throw this one out at you just because I complained to you guys about this past Sunday. I feel like Bilal Powell can be a very good fantasy back, and the Jets underutilized him so much this season. Like, I was ready for like a healthy dose of Bilal Powell all year long with like a sprinkling of Matt Forte, and I got nothing that even looked slightly like that. You know, I got Powell 3 weeks in a row, and then Forte for 4 weeks, and then Elijah McGuire for 2, and then Forte for 3 more, but Powell was healthy the entire time. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Every time that man has been given the ball in bulk, he thrives with it. I mean, you beat Jacksonville this year, who's a playoff team and a game away from being a first round bye, because Bilal Powell went off for like 150. Like, on a very good defense. Like, every time he's been given a shot to really take over, he's done it. And yet for some reason the Jets do Jets things, and Todd Bowles does Todd Bowles things, and I got a wasted fantasy season out of Bilal Powell.
How about Jerick McKinnon? He showed a lot when he was offered the opportunity this year when Dalvin Cook went down. And Latavius Murray's been good enough to kind of – I don't know. I don't like Latavius Murray, and I really like Jerick McKinnon, so it's been frustrating for me to watch that scenario unfold. But I think his skill set lends itself to like a poor man's Todd Gurley, David Johnson, where he can do everything. He's just not as good at it as those two guys are. But like far better than, some of the other players. So I think, he's an unrestricted free agent. I don't think there's any way he's going back to Minnesota because of, what their running back room looks like right now. He knows he's better than what opportunity. There's no need for them to give the ball to anybody but Dalvin Cook next year. So, like, if I'm Jerick McKinnon and I can improve my situation with a team, I don't know, like the Niners, who we've been talking about a lot so far, he fits that system great, and they've got the money. McKinnon is absolutely a fantasy starter next year if he can get it. Even, not even like a Todd Gurley role, but the top back in a timeshare, I think he's a great situation.
I picked a guy that we've talked a lot about and we think could be a really good running back, Isaiah Crowell. I think that we've seen glimpses where he looks like a really good running back, and then we've seen glimpses where he looks like he plays for the Browns. So I think if he plays for a good team that actually uses him, I think he could be a really good running back. I don't think he's a top 5 running back, but I think he's a usable fantasy running back and a really good NFL running back if he's in a good situation.
I'll tell you what, I'm going. No, go ahead.
Well, just to build on Crowell, like it's impressive as far as he's concerned that you say there are weeks he's good and weeks he looks like he plays for the Browns. Yep. He plays for the Browns every week.
Oh,
so like the week. But my point there is the weeks he looks good. That's in spite of the fact that he's a Brown.
Yeah, so it's on his skill set.
If he never ever gets to play for the Browns, that's a good back.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a name that I've brought up a lot, a name that you guys know that I love, and I'll get hammered for probably until the day I die. I'm going with Dion Lewis of the Patriots.
I thought you were going to say Charles Sims.
No.
I thought he was going to say Jeremy Hill.
No. Jeremy Hill should play for the Montreal Alouettes as the water boy next year. Okay? And even then, he's only going to get like 2 yards per carry on the water. So, listen, Dion Lewis in really like the ultimate NFL timeshare this year has had a really productive season. Like, how many people realize that he's run for over 800 yards this year? He's got 5 rushing touchdowns in the backfield where, he's not even like the third option a lot of times to run the ball. He's caught 26 balls this year. He's got 2 receiving touchdowns for that team. He just needs to get out of a timeshare and have an opportunity to maybe be like in a situation where they have a team has an A and a B back instead of an A, B, C, D backfield like the Patriots have. And I don't know about a specific team fit for him, but as far as what I've seen for his skill set and some of the offenses that would best suit him, I've got to say, like, this is gonna go over like a lead balloon, but there's 2 teams in the New York, New Jersey metro area who could use Dion Lewis, whether it's as a change of pace style back. The Giants, prototypically have always used a back in this style. The Jets, if they're not going to use Bilal Powell, Matt Forte is what, like 58 years old next year?
59.
So to me, it fits like a glove to either one of those teams. It's just a good situation where you're getting a good back, a productive back. It feels like he's been in the league for about 15 years. He's 27 years old.
Here's the problem, and I hate to tell you you're wrong, but you're wrong.
You don't hate to tell me that.
You're right. I don't. I love to. I'm not touching any of those New England players, because when you leave New England, like, you leave the consistency of Brady and Belichick and good offense and good football, and those players generally don't do well when they leave. Like, name a New England Patriot that's left New England and then thrived after the fact. Like, I'll let you think. If there are any, it's a very short list. Whereas Chandler Jones,
Curtis Martin.
What?
Curtis Martin.
No, he didn't leave Brady and Belichick.
You just said New England.
He left Bill Parcells and then came with Bill Parcells.
Irving Fryer.
You're the worst kind of person. Generally speaking, you don't leave Brady and Belichick and get better. You know what I mean? So I would never in a million years say that Dion. I think he's a good athlete. He does exactly what they need him to do, and he does it well. I would never in a million years think that Dion Lewis would thrive the way he has anywhere else in the league, in any other offense, in any other situation. Right. I mean, they're making a decent looking running back out of Rex Burkhead. Stop it. He was behind Jeremy Hill on the depth chart, and and now he's functional in New England. It's because it's New England.
Don't get me started on the Cincinnati running back situation. Listen, no player has gone from the doghouse to the penthouse faster than Todd Gurley over the past calendar year. At this point last year, a lot of us were ready to like throw our smart devices into the river over Todd Gurley. And this year, people are rejoicing over Todd Gurley. He even tweeted out, "Thank you," or "You're welcome," to all of his fantasy owners. Now leave me alone. So it's been a complete 180 here. But has he convinced you that he's worthy of the #1 overall pick in fantasy in 2018?
I'm going to say this, and everybody in this group knows I love Todd Gurley. He has not convinced me of anything, but Sean McVay has.
What?
Yes. Come on. This all has to do with how he's being used. Like, we never saw Todd Gurley catch the ball out of the backfield like this. And that's not because he couldn't. But now we're seeing it. And now we're seeing what it looks like when an NFL offense is run the correct way. That's all I'm saying. I'm not taking anything away from Todd. I think Todd is outstanding. But he's outstanding because he's finally being used correctly in the NFL. And that's on McVay more than it is on Todd Gurley. Is Todd Gurley a different player than he was last year? Is he a different player? Did he change anything?
Here's my take then, since Rocco's wrong, I'll tell you the truth. Yes, he should be #1 overall next year.
I didn't say he should be.
You said you don't believe in him, so if you take him #1, then
Sean McVay that takes a 230-pound back and makes him run a 4.4.
Here's why for me. David Johnson last year had a season that most people thought wouldn't be duplicated. unless it was by David Johnson for a very long time. Right now in half PPR, Todd Gurley's 9 points behind him. 9.
Phew.
Less than 1 point per game passed behind a season that was one of the best we've ever seen in fantasy football.
And he still has a game to play.
It will
Yeah.
should be noted that McVay is saying he's going to sit him.
So
Good. He should.
regardless, he's 9 points behind
Right.
a season that we thought we might never see again. So David Johnson is injured. Zeke Elliott is an idiot. Melvin Gordon, they don't even know if they're going to use him. They put in Austin Eckler. Lev
With broken
Bell,
hands. With broken hands, they put Eckler in.
Lev Bell still, who knows? He might sit out again in the beginning of the season. Who knows what happens? Right now, in my mind, Todd Gurley is the only one that you can't miss on. The only one. So, yes, in my mind, it should be a no-brainer. If you're in a league with me, I hope you draft somebody else because I want Todd Gurley.
It's so funny because, like, we're saying this, and last year, if we would have had to go ahead a year and, like, listen to this, we would think that we were insane. But, like, he's the safest bet.
Yep.
Right now out of anybody. Like, you don't know at what point David Johnson is coming back. You assume he's going to be the same player, obviously. But right now,
he's coming back without a quarterback, regardless of who it is.
Yeah, it's just the safest bet.
And probably without a head coach.
Yeah, maybe.
Which was announced today. Listen, I want to reiterate something. I would still take Todd Gurley number one. The question was, has Todd Gurley done enough? And I'm saying Todd Gurley.
Yes.
Okay, Todd Gurley is doing what he should. Todd Gurley is doing what we all thought he could be doing. But if you take Sean McVay out of the situation, Todd Gurley goes back to last year's Todd Gurley. And
McVay's still going to be there next year, right?
I understand that, but I'm saying because of McVay, I am on the Gurley train.
I think what you're maybe not ignoring, maybe that's the wrong word, but there is he had Jeff Fisher. There are 1,000 guys that would use Todd Gurley this way. And I'm on record.
Only 1,000?
I am on record as loving Sean McVay. So I'm not bashing what you're saying there. But this is what Todd Gurley is. It takes a special type of idiot like Jeff Fisher
to ruin it.
To ruin Todd Gurley. Like, you have to be special to make Todd Gurley look ordinary because he is a gift from the football gods. Go Dogs. And I hope that Todd Gurley goes number one overall in every draft from here until I die.
Wow.
I'm going that far. Well, I shouldn't say that because that means I'm going to die in about
like 6 years. Yeah, you're done 6 years.
All right, so maybe not that. But
you had a good run, man.
Let's roll that back a little.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, I'm picking on you, Rock, but it's a combination of what you said and what Todd has done. Like, and I know that's what you're saying. Like, obviously, McVay's offense is amazing, and it's featuring its best player. Hey, there's the spoiler alert. Like, why would you not do that in every team? Every year, feature your best player. And McVay's doing it. He's doing it in a great way. And it's showing off just how special Gurley is. Like, I just praised Jerick McKinnon. If you switch them, McKinnon's not doing this.
Right.
He's good, not amazing.
And this isn't – sorry, go ahead.
Well, just the combination of McVay, that offense, and Gurley in general is just special. And as much as I love Lev Bell, this won't even be a choice for me if I win any lotteries next year and draft first. It will be Todd Gurley in any setting in fantasy football.
Yeah, well, and I'll mention too that McVay's offense isn't like a trick offense like a Chip Kelly.
No,
people are going to figure it out. It's just a solid offense that is, and they're not going to just figure out how to stop Todd Gurley. So he's going to keep doing this unless he gets hurt.
I think my biggest thing for Todd that really helped him this year and pushed him into that back into that number one running back. 64 receptions this season, 21 more than he had last year. Like, that's huge because I think we went into the season saying, Todd's a great running back, and if McVay can get him going, we're going to see him back in that 1,000-yard back conversation. But I don't think anybody ever expected him to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield like this. And I guess that's where I was going with that. To have 788 and 6 through the air is not what we expected from Todd Gurley at all.
I expected it. Last year I said he was going to have over 50 receptions and over 500 yards receiving. I was just a
year away.
Yeah, listen, here I don't need to like really beat a dead horse here, but like Alvin Kamara is the number 3 overall fantasy running back in points scored right now. He's caught 75 balls, which is 11 more than Todd Gurley. He's 97 fantasy points behind Todd Gurley. Le'Veon Bell is the number 2 overall running back right now. He's caught 85 balls. Todd's only caught 64. He's run the ball 321 times. Todd has only run it 279.
That's crazy.
Gurley is 42 points ahead of Lev Bell in overall fantasy points right now. The volume is not going to stop. Deal hit the nail on the head. This offense is only just starting to figure themselves out.
Yep.
It's only going to get better. Barring something like just catastrophic, they're only starting to figure it out at this point. So to me, it's clear as anything that Todd Gurley is number 1.
19 touchdowns is a huge number. Like that cannot be overstated. The only thing, and it doesn't scare me, but like the only thing is that 19 touchdowns is hard to duplicate. So keep that in mind also.
I agree 100%. But say you take 7 touchdowns off, then he's still tied with Lev Bell for number 1.
That's right.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm saying like temper expectations, because if you say, oh my God, he's going to get 20 next year, generally speaking, that does not happen.
Right.
He might, and I understand what you're saying about, logic says there's going to be a drop off, but again, the offense. I don't think this offense is just going to stop scoring points.
No.
So I mean, they've settled. They're probably going to get better, and they've settled for a lot of field goals. So I mean, it's a scary proposition what he could be, and again, 321 carries to 279. Like, fill in that volume, which you haven't had to do. And think about how insane we could be talking about with Todd Gurley here. But
and all of this is to say real quick, like, if I get the 3rd pick in every draft next year,
it's awesome.
I'm gonna cry my way all the way up to the draft board, because I'm gonna get David Johnson at number 3.
Right.
Like, don't forget about this dude. Everything we're saying about Gurley is what David Johnson did last year on a far worse offense.
Yep.
Right.
So, like, I know we're saying his quarterback sucked last year.
Right.
So, like, I don't know. God bless you, Todd, but keep pushing David Johnson down the boards, please.
All right, guys, we're going to skip ahead here. We're going to talk about McCaffrey for a second, but I feel like we're going to move on for the sake of some of these other discussion points. We'll have plenty of time to discuss him and what we feel about him moving forward. But let's take a second here and talk about our friends at Gorb. Listen, it's the time of the year where people are starting to make some resolutions. And let's be honest, usually one of the top ones on the list is to get themselves in better shape. I don't know if you have seen this social media takeover, this movement that is happening with Gorb, but a lot of it is centered around their main concept that you could either get hungry or be hungry. And at this time of the year, when you're talking about resolutions and changing things in your life, you've got to follow that mantra, and you've got to take that all the way to the bank and either get hungry or be hungry. You could check them out at ghorbh.com. If you're going to look toward a new fitness goal for this year, maybe you're going to start, slimming down, which, I know a lot of people are going to be trying to do, quite honestly. You're going to want to look good too. If you check out gorb.com, ghorbh.com, they've got all kinds of great looks, apparel, accessories, all kinds of stuff, all colors, sizes, men, women, kids. You could basically clothe the entire family. You'll look good, you'll feel good, and all the while you'll be reminding yourself to either get hungry or be hungry with those New Year's resolutions. Check them out today. All right, guys, let's go with a little bit quicker pace here on some of these. This is kind of our no huddle concept. We're going to kind of throw the hurry up offense out the window at some point here because that's what we do. But in theory, it's a good idea. There's trouble right now in Big D, which I got to be honest with you, I'm not that sad about. Dak and Dez seem like they're no longer on the same page in Dallas. And, you might have seen the quote that came out from Dak Prescott, kind of, almost sarcastically saying that I guess I need to start hitting him in the face mask with some of these passes. Obviously, things not going over well there. Do you think if you were the Cowboys, you would consider moving on from Dez Bryant at this point?
I can't do it. I mean, I know there's drama and that's fine, but like, if you're moving on from Dez, that makes wide receiver a huge priority to that team. I think as long as you realize he's not what he once was, like he's still a really good player and definitely the best receiver in that room. Like you can't get rid of him and go to what? Terrence Williams and like Cole Beasley and Bryce Butler. That doesn't scare anybody. Like Dez Bryant, you're still scared of, and he's shown you flashes of that even this year of why you're scared of him. So I think it's dumb to move on from him personally. I mean, they may feel differently because he is a big part of every trauma that Dallas has had in a long time. But for me, the key to this team is Zeke and Dak running the ball, and Dez is a big part of opening that up for them.
I'm going to say something, and I'll probably get crap for this. By the end of next season, they're going to realize that they should be moving on from Dak.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Like, I said this earlier on this year, and I was afraid that like this would be the case for him. He is a good game-managing quarterback, and that is it. And when you don't have you could shake your head. The guy has less. This is my favorite stat of all time, and I know both of you will love it. The guy has less touchdown passes than Carson Wentz since Carson Wentz tore his ACL. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, here's the problem, okay? He's not good enough to win you games on his own, by himself. He's just not. Now, if you're okay, if you're okay with that, listen, he should know enough that, like, I've been saying this since last year. Why has Dez dropped off? It's not because Dez's skills have diminished a ton. It's because Dak is not on the same page with him. She's just not. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna side with Dez Bryant, who's been doing it for like 7 years, before I'm gonna side with Dak, who's literally been ignoring Dez for 2.
Dak is an extremely special player because of what Ezekiel Elliott offers him. Like, I hear what you're saying about a game manager type, and I don't totally disagree. But I think, like, as far as games managers go, he's as good as it gets.
Right.
And when Ezekiel Elliott is there, it makes Dak Prescott a terrifying player. And there's no reason to think Ezekiel Elliott won't be there because he already served his suspension, yada, 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 yada. He has no injury history. And you can feel however you feel about Dez. I know that we're kind of rabbit trailing here off of what the actual question was. But to think that Dak Prescott can't be a Super Bowl champion quarterback for this team is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous because he is amazing at taking advantage of what Dallas offers, which is a great line and a great running game. But when they run that play action, his decision-making, his ability to make plays with his legs is second to none. So I've been as big a Dak basher as anybody because I thought he was overrated last year, winning Rookie of the Year. He shouldn't have. But the truth is, when Ezekiel Elliott is there, he's a really, really special talent that's terrifying for opposing defenses to face. So to say that they're going to move on from him, I think is ludicrous.
I just think that they don't like. It's hard for me to see this as going well for them with Dak Prescott, just because like you can't even get your best receiver involved. It's not like you're getting all the other ones heavily involved. Like you cannot win a championship in today's NFL with just a good running game and a play action game. Like, hey, remember Mark Sanchez from 2009 and 2010? And I'm not comparing their skill sets by any means, but like you can't win with just that mentality. You can't. And the Jets' defense and running game at that time were tops in the league, top 5 in the league. So, like, no, they didn't have Ezekiel Elliott, but they had a good combination of 2 backs and a fantastic defense. But when it comes down to it, you need to be able to work the ball through the air. And I don't think Dak can, other than in play action, off of a run scheme, that type of thing. And I don't think that if Dak puts up another year like this, that Jerry Jones is the type of owner to let's just sit and wait on Dak. So that, I guess that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I like where Miles was going with this. I think that he kind of hit the nail on the head because Dak is what you would call a system quarterback. And he runs the Cowboys system very, very well. Like, he's a scary matchup proposition for a lot of defenses because of what he's able to create off of that running attack that they have. When he gets himself to the point where he's moving around a little bit too, he's as dangerous as anyone. I mean, I know we think Russell Wilson is very special, but Dak has that potential as well to just kind of keep plays alive. That sneaky, really strong arm. Some of the throws that he makes when he's off balance or running are just insane. So I think it's not necessarily that he's the problem. I feel like it's not necessarily a time for a change of scenery with Dez because you're going to take a cap hit, obviously, if you get rid of him. But what are you replacing him with? The free agent class that's out there is nothing very special. I'm not really sold on the fact that this incoming wide receiver class in the draft is anything all that special either. So I think what you have to do now is alter your system. Maybe Dez isn't your outside guy anymore. And I can't take the credit for this, but this was something that I kind of heard from someone else. What if you moved him into more of that Larry Fitzgerald later in his career position where he's just moving around the field a whole lot more? Maybe he's lining up in the slot some, maybe he's outside some, whatever. Get creative with him because he's still a dynamic guy after the catch. So he's a guy that, he's terrifying to me once he has the ball. The issue has been getting him the ball. So I just think you have to get more creative. But it's been funny to me to watch how the narrative out of Dallas right now is that, hey, it's time to move on from Dez.
I got some names here, guys that could be free agents. You tell me if you'd rather have Dez or them. Dez or Devontae Adams?
Adams.
Dez or Sammy Watkins?
Dez.
Jarvis Landry?
Landry.
Allen Robinson?
That's a close one for me.
Allen Robinson.
Allen Robinson.
So there are some guys out there that are replaceable, and Dez's contract is pretty big. Like, what was it, $16.5 million for the next 2 years? So it's a pretty big contract. But if a team buys in and says he's the real deal, they could get a pick for him, or they could get a replacement player and could pick up one of these free agents. So I don't put it outside the realm of possibilities that he's gone.
Yeah, nothing will surprise me. But I guess I'm sticking to my guns here that I don't think he's necessarily the issue or their connection is the issue. I think it's just time to kind of morph your system to how you've been using those two. So we'll see.
Allen Robinson. I just want Allen Robinson. That's
I think everybody wants Allen Robinson.
Pretty much everybody, yeah. Listen, the AFC playoff picture is a little bit more dramatic than the NFC at this point. Of the teams who have not clinched a playoff spot yet and are still in the hunt, who is going to be left out? We're talking Titans, Ravens, who as of right now are in, but still in the hunt. You've got the Chargers and the Bills.
I think the hardest thing to figure out here is all these tiebreakers make it crazy. One of these teams could lose and have the other one win and still get in because it's really crazy. If you're asking me straight up who I think will win this weekend, I think the Bills take care of the Dolphins. I know that doesn't get them in. I think the Titans lose to the Jaguars. I'm off the Titans train a little bit here. So I guess that means based on tiebreakers, it would be Bills and Ravens. But it's sad because I think the team the team that's the best out of these four is the Chargers, and I think they need the most help to get in at this point, based on tiebreakers and stuff like that. Because I think they only have the tiebreaker over the Bills, but I think they are the best team of that group of four. So
I think
if that matters.
I think the Titans and the Bills are left out. Titans, I agree, they're going to lose to the Jags, and I actually think the Bills could lose to Miami. Miami, you never know what Miami team's going to show up. They're a mystery, but I think of all the teams that these teams are playing, I like the Dolphins the most of those. So I think the Titans and Bills miss.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because the Titans are on the downward spiral here, but I think they're going to get the benefit of the Jags maybe not being as invested in this game this week, which I think is evident by the fact that for the first time in I can't even remember how long, there's not an 8:30 Sunday night game. The NFL just waived their right to even move a game to that. So I think the Titans pull it off, and I think the Ravens win as well. The Bengals are going to play them tough, but I just don't think they have enough firepower there. But how funny is it that at the end of the day, for the Bills, it could come down to the fact that they decided to experimentally play Peterman against the Chargers in that atrocious game and lose, and that could ultimately be what really keeps them out of the playoff picture. All right, let's talk about the NFC landscape here. Pretty much everything is locked up as far as who is going to be playing. The Falcons and the Seahawks can both vie for the 6th seed here to sneak into the playoffs. Who do you see being the number 6 seed for the NFC? Not everyone at once.
I don't think. Here's what I'll boil it down to. From what I understand, the game time between the Falcons and Panthers is the same as the Saints-Bucks game. So I think that Ron Rivera and his staff are going to be scoreboard watching. And if the Saints kind of take an early commanding lead against the Bucks, Cam's done for the day. And that immensely helps Atlanta. So for me to answer this question, it's strange, but I'm going to look squarely at the Saints-Buccaneers game. And if the Saints-Buccaneers game stays close, I think the Panthers keep playing their starters, keep playing hard, and I think they actually beat the Falcons. There's no way Seattle's losing this week.
Yeah.
I mean, they're at home against the Cardinals, who have they're playing well, but I know Seattle's hurt. But maybe it's just part of me that still thinks it's 2013. I don't know. But I still fear Seattle at home like crazy. It could be the part of me that thinks it's 2013. It could be the part of me that 5 weeks ago watched them dismantle my team. I don't know. But the point is, I don't think Seattle loses. So this is squarely on Atlanta's shoulders. So for me, if the Saints game stays close, I think Carolina wins. I think Seattle wins, and Atlanta continues the Super Bowl hangover. If the Saints can jump out to an early lead against the Bucks, I think the Panthers start pulling people because they know they're locked into the 5 seed. Atlanta will win and get the 6. So I'm riding the fence on that. Personally, I guess if I had to pick, I don't think the Bucks can hang with the Saints at all. So I think the Saints will jump out to that lead. The Bucks will fold. The Falcons will win and get the number 6 seed.
I can't get myself behind the Falcons right now, the way that they have just been completely uninspired in every aspect of the game.
Even if it's Carolina B, like if it's Derek Anderson out there handing the ball to, is it still Nick Goings? I don't even know who their third string running back is. Fozzie Whitaker and Derek Anderson are going to beat the Falcons?
Derek Anderson and He Hate Me could go out there right now and run it up on the Falcons. Look, I get what you're saying, and I do agree that that's going to play some part of it. I do think the Seahawks are going to win. So I think that pressure is going to be on. The Cardinals, I mean, Bruce Arians said in his post game that they're going to go up there and I'm changing the quote, beat the heck out of the Seahawks in, quote, their house. The Cardinals feel like that's their house somehow. I don't get that, but I just think the Panthers are going to put it on the Falcons. Like, this is just a chance to make a statement within your division and say, nope, you're not getting in. We are not allowing you to get in. we are going to completely shut you down, and that's the end of the story. So I just think based on those three teams winning that the Falcons are the odd man out. All right, let's talk about real quick here. I want to just touch on this quick, and we're going to try and not dive too far into this, but it is a major storyline right now. The Eagles locked up home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs, yet nobody seems to really be high on this team at all. Nobody's power rankings is really showing them a ton of respect as a 13-2 team. And even Vegas now has significantly cooled on them. What are you most attributing this late trend here with the lack of respect for the Eagles?
I've been holding back tears for like 3 weeks nonstop every time I think about Carson Wentz. So
why not talk about it?
Yeah, the rest of the team is playing like that is true for them as well. So the easy answer is, hey, Carson Wentz is hurt. Well, if the rest of the team plays the way they had for the first 11 weeks, I think Nick Foles is good enough to get this done. It's a case in point. They just haven't been. The Rams game, then the Giants game, the defense played horribly. And now this past week, the defense played great, inspired football, and the offense played like garbage. So for me, it's going to take a come-to-Jesus moment of, hey, are we going to do this for Carson, or are we going to let everybody be right that guy's the only reason we're a contender? I'm not sure the answer is not B. I just think the rest of the team, their head is in the tank just like mine is because Carson Wentz went down. This team is playing very much like a one and done. If the Giants and Raiders back-to-back can make you squeak out wins, the Rams or the Saints or the Panthers or the Falcons or the Seahawks or the Vikings are going to blow you out, even if the game's in Philly. I don't care.
I think you're just waiting for like that this Jeff Hostetler moment from Nick Foles, and I don't know. Like I don't know. I'd like to think that he has it in him. You know, South tells me all the time how Nick Foles is a Hall of Famer.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
So we should clarify that. He makes a joke about the 7 touchdown pass. I don't want people to lose interest in us because we said Nick Foles is a Hall of Famer.
No, I clearly said he is in the Hall of Fame.
That's right. He is not a Hall of Famer, but he's there.
There's the difference.
Yeah, so I think they're just waiting for that Jeff Hostetler type moment out of him, and I think he can do it. I think, you know, after the Giants game, like I said before, you come out and you say, oh, you know, this defense needs to step up, and then the defense steps up, but the offense, you know, gives you basically a goose egg almost. I think if they can get things together and working on all cylinders, this is still a team that can at least compete for the NFC. It's not going to be a runaway. It's not going to be, you know, a slam dunk in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be hard, and they're going to be close game victories if they do it. That's just the nature of the beast at this point.
Look, give this team some respect. Like I'm very sarcastically hard on them, especially during games. Like I like to play the whole like over the edge, like, you know, teetering on the edge of the bridge, like pretend card. But here's the thing, like since the beginning of last year with Doug Peterson as the coach, the Eagles have lost 2 games at home. They're undefeated at home this season. At the end of the day, like we're not going to go back for the most part and look and see like, oh, how did the wins happen or whatever. Like, yeah, we may remember the ugly Raiders win because it's at this point in the season and it's fresh in our minds. But ultimately, we're going to remember that right now, they're 7-0 at home this year. They've lost 2 games overall at home, one of which was a pretty close game against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. So, you know, another one was a real tight division game with the Redskins, who just caught fire at the right time. So, like, they are very, very, very tough out at home. And I don't think that you could just dismiss that the way that a lot of people have been doing to this point, which is the most odd thing to me at this point. Like, they're very clearly a dominant team at home at the Link. And I feel like you can't look past that. You just can't.
Funny 10-second story worth telling. My stepdad's a big Raiders fan, and we were watching the game, leading into the game. He's like, last time Nick Foles played the Raiders, he threw 7 touchdowns. There's no way he's going to do that again tonight. I said, you think he's going to throw 8?
I'll tell you what, a lot of people starting him in fantasy were thinking that he
could dominate again.
Could dominate them, and it just did not work out that way. So, all right, listen, just real quickly here, give me a playoff team, or no, let's do a playoff team that is already in, who is not going to return to the postseason next year. Just a gut feeling.
Oh man, you said already in.
I think it's the Jags. I mean, they've caught fire. They're playing hot football right now. Their defense is great. I'm just not sure you can rely on the offense to give them the same kind of efficiency, not necessarily production, but not turning the ball over. So when you combine that with the fact that Houston is going to be back in a big way next year, the Colts are going to be back in a big way next year, I still think they're a good team. By no means do I think the Jags are going 4-12. But when you combine the fact that I think they're playing at their maximum potential right now, and the 2 best teams in that division are absolutely not, mostly due to injuries, I would kind of say the Jags. I still think they'll contend, but of the rest of the teams out there, I think the Jags are the most obvious answer.
I'm gonna give a cheating. I would probably go with the Jags too, but just to give you something else, I'm gonna go with the cheating answer of the NFC South will not send 3 teams to the playoffs again next year. So let's assume that the Falcons the Falcons get in and they send 3. I don't think all 3 of them would be there next year. It's just highly unlikely that they can keep that kind of sustainability within the whole division. And I would actually look for, I hate to say it because I do love what they're doing right now, but I would actually take the Saints to take a back step. Drew Brees is only getting older. And hopefully Sarkisian is out and they've, fixed that mess down there in Atlanta. So I'll say the Saints just because, it's too hard to sustain 3 playoff teams from the same division.
Yeah, I had Baltimore, but since they haven't clinched yet, and you've said somebody that's in for sure, I actually agree with Rocco because, Seattle, we're assuming are going to be better next year. Dallas, we're assuming is going to be better next year. Green Bay is going to be better. And we all think that San Francisco is going to be better. So, yeah, I think that there's no way that they can get in 3 knowing that all the other teams are getting better.
I think the obvious answer is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
I feel like, they got off to that hot start and it benefited them. And it's really going to ultimately bite the Chargers that they started 0-4. I don't think the Chargers are going to be as inconsistent next year, although I say that, and that's their MO. They do it every year. So who knows? I also think the Raiders are going to be better. I think, obviously the talent is there on the roster. Maybe it's somebody on Del Rio's staff needs to go. Maybe it's Del Rio needs to go. But I think the Raiders come back next year as well. So I think that whole division is better as a whole, and you can't afford to be as roller coaster up and down as the Chiefs and get back in. So I do think that they are the ones for me that sit out next year.
You said that's the Chargers' MO. Isn't it also the Chiefs' MO?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's the beginning of the season or the end. They find a way to win 10 in a row. So they just do that.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I just think that, their inconsistency this year and the way that their offense just kind of disappears. Yeah, I mean, their offense just completely disappears. So, they're obviously, you're going to have to go into Pittsburgh again or, into New England, and that's not going to be a good situation for you. So,
yeah.
All right, last one here. Give me a random prediction for Week 17. We did this last week. It was kind of fun to come up with something. It could be something obscure.
I hate it.
No, because you live in the let's plan this out world.
Yeah, of course. I hate being wrong.
And the logical.
You asked me, hey, why don't you come up with something that there's about a 99% chance you're going to be wrong? That's stressful for me. I don't like it. Right?
We're not living in the logical Ryan Deal world here.
That's the only world that I know how to live in. No. Well, I'll start out since I hate it more than anything in the whole wide world. So, I made in the first prediction we did of the season. We did our bold predictions. I made this crazy long prediction. It was hard to follow, but my prediction was that 16 rookies would start at running back this season. 5 rookies would be in the top 25 in scoring, and 5 guys that were 29 or older would be in the top 25. So here's my bold prediction now, keeping up with it, that it's going to happen, but here's what I need for it. Right now, there are 14 rookies that have started. There are 4 rookies that are in the top 25 and 4 guys that are 29 plus. So I'm right on the brink. Here's what I need. I need Chuck Pagano to make one last-ditch effort to try to keep his job, start Marlon Mack, who should have been starting by all accounts already. Matt Breida and Joe Williams are the future in San Francisco. So I want them to start Matt Breida this week. Why not start? Jimmy the G cannot lose. It doesn't matter who's back there. Why not put Matt Breida back there? So I need those 2 things to happen. Chuck, stop sucking one time. All right. And Bilal Powell is currently number 26 in scoring. He's going to come up to 25 unless he doesn't play, because Chris Thompson is 25. So he's going to move to 25. So that's going to be my one guy that's 29 plus that gets in. And then I need about 30 points from Joe Mixon or Tariq Cohen, or about 25 points from Jamal Williams, and I'll nail it. But I'm bold prediction, it's going to happen.
I hope that all those things happen just for Neil's sake.
Thank you.
I'll go with one here. This is I don't know the average point differential between games overall, for this season or really forever. But you have 16 divisional matchups this week. Everything is squeezed into one window. So teams that really have something in the balance are going to have to do some scoreboard watching. Miles alluded to that earlier. So you're not going to have the luxury of knowing when you take the field, for the most part, that, hey, something's locked up for us, or we still have to, fight to get it or whatever. I think that the average point differential for this week across all 16 games is going to be 4 points this week. Wow. Which is insane to think about, because typically in week 17, you're going to have some blowouts. I think we're going to have 16 pretty tight games here. Some people fighting for their coaches, some coaches, just throwing something at the wall to see what sticks. A lot of teams still have something to fight for playoffs. I think you're going to have 16 really tight games. 4 points is your average point differential this week.
Hey, Miles, as soon as we hit end on this, you want to work on a spreadsheet for South?
I want to know how many teams are going to play 1-point games to make up for the fact of how badly the Patriots are going to beat the Jets this week. That's what I need to know.
How many 1-pointers do you need to make up for a 45-pointer?
Exactly, right? My Can my bold prediction be that Jimmy Garoppolo stays undefeated?
Jimmy the G.
Jimmy the G.
Pretty big win.
They're playing the Rams, but it's kind of cheap because McVay has already said that nobody's playing. I think the 4 of us are going to get a call just in case they need some extra bodies, which I think is smart. You got to rush these guys and make sure they're healthy. I do think Jimmy G and the Niners get the win. Kyle Shanahan does not care about where he drafts. This team 5 weeks ago was lined up for the number 2 pick, and now they have a chance at literally picking like 10 or higher, which is amazing. I think it's so crazy. So my bold prediction is Jimmy G stays undefeated.
Mine was, it's funny you said that. Mine was actually just kind of taking yours one step further. Not only will Jimmy G stay undefeated, I think the 49ers are the only road team that's going to win this week. I have the home teams going 15-1 this week, whether it's because of sitting players or needing wins due to playoffs. I think the home teams are going 15-1 this week. The Niners being the only road team to win, and only because I think the Rams are going to sit everybody.
Plus Jimmy the G
Plus, Jimmy G cannot lose.
with Matt Breida.
I think it's so funny that you say that because I have 7 away teams winning in the NFC alone.
All right. Well, hey, that's going to make things interesting for your conversation this weekend anyway.
Yeah.
So, all right. So a lot of people feeling hyped about Cousin Sal from Long Island. So we'll see how that goes. Hey, that is going to do it for this week 17 preview of the podcast. Have no fear. We will be here all through the playoffs as well to guide you through the matchups, to talk about some daily fantasy stuff as well. So hang with us. We're sticking around. We're not going anywhere. We are not hitting the golf course like the Dallas Cowboys will be. Check out footballgoons.com all week long. Miles' power rankings are up now. You're going to want to check those out. Lots of good insight there. We'll have our goons, our ghosts, and our daily picks for this week. We'll hit the site as well on Thursday. And of course, you could catch up with all of our former podcast content there. Facebook.com/footballgoons, and on the Twitter, we are at footballgoons. Quickest and easiest ways to holler at us on social media. And right here on our YouTube channel as well, you could subscribe, you could like, you can comment on all of our videos, and we will get back to you as soon as we can type it out to you, basically. Thanks again for listening all season long. Good luck to those of you who may still be playing in Week 17. We'll catch you next time.